Hey, welcome back to Next Stack Ninjas, the go-to podcast for mastering your health and wealth longevity. I'm your host, Rachael Van Pelt, and today we're going to talk about a quiet trap that sneaks up on almost everyone in retirement. The comfort trap. You know the one, the routine that feels peaceful because nothing ever really changes, the home that feels safe because you know every nook and cranny, the comfort that slowly becomes a cage. We're going to do a deep dive today into the psychology and neuroscience behind why we stay too long in homes, in habits, and sometimes entire lifestyles that no longer serve us, and how that choice silently accelerates aging. Importantly, I'll show you why right-sizing your life is the key to better health, wealth, and freedom in retirement. You know, I once worked with a couple who had lived in their house for about 32 years. It was beautiful. It had this big wraparound deck, mountain views, a big garden. But when I first visited this couple, the garden was overgrown and the upstairs looked dark and unused. So I had to ask, were they still loving their home and utilizing all the space? They just gave each other one of those knowing couples glances and said, not really. It's mostly storage these days. Which I totally get. I see it all the time with retirees. It wasn't so much that their house was unloved, it was that their world had shrunk. They'd stopped hosting dinner parties. They'd stopped nurturing the garden. They'd started letting stuff pile up in the unused rooms. Their comfort had turned into containment. And this starts long before we notice. It's because our brains confuse comfort and predictability with safety and security. Your brain is constantly predicting what's about to happen. It loves efficiency, what neuroscientists call predictive coding. That's because the less your environment changes, the less your brain has to work. It's the same mechanism that lets you drive familiar routes on autopilot or reach for that coffee mug without looking. And while efficiency conserves mental bandwidth, it also quietly dulls neuroplasticity. That's your brain's ability to remain adaptable. When every day looks the same, the part of your brain used for learning and memory, the hippocampus, stops firing as vigorously. Familiar routines just become the neurologic equivalent of idling. And it isn't just your brain that conserves energy. The rest of your body does too. It does that by ratcheting down your metabolism, the number of calories your body burns every day. When your environment is well known and highly predictable, every move you make throughout the day, it gets more efficient, which means your muscles burn fewer calories. That efficiency sounds good until you realize it's why we gain weight as we age. And that comfort, while it feels safe, it also keeps shrinking your body, brain, and energy. On the other hand, adding novelty in your life, like a new class, a new neighborhood, or even a new walking route, will literally wake up your brain and body. That change may feel a bit messy at first, but it also exercises your cognitive function and metabolic flexibility. It's exactly why right sizing can be so transformative. When you step into a novel routine, it wakes up those unused muscles and neurons. But I get it. That emotional pull of an old home runs deep. Home is not just where we hang our hat, is it? It's where our story evolved. We have treasured memories of raising our kids, hosting holiday parties, renovating the basement just the way we like it. Home becomes a part of our identity. So when people tell me I'm never going to move, what I know they really mean is I just don't want to lose who I was in this place. It's not being lazy, it's identity attachment. And letting go of that identity registers as pain. In fact, the neuroscience tells us that the brain processes loss, whether that's loss of a person, a role, or a home, in the same part of the brain that registers physical pain. So staying put feels protective, at least short term. But long term, that avoidance becomes its own form of suffering. Because the version of you who built that life is gone. You evolved, but the home didn't. It's a good thing though, right? It means you're still growing. The trick is to honor your past while not staying stuck living inside of it. That stuckness is what ages you prematurely. In fact, the research on this is remarkably clear. Staying in an environment that no longer challenges you actually accelerates biological aging. Now, I already mentioned the declines in brain activity and metabolism that occur when we get too comfortable, but there are even more physical repercussions to staying where we don't belong. The most insidious is the low level chronic stress that comes from environmental mismatch. If you're maintaining a home that's too large, too cluttered, or too expensive, this keeps your stress hormone, cortisol, subtly elevated. That high cortisol causes inflammation. It blunts immune function, disrupts sleep patterns, and speeds up arterial aging. Now, if you find yourself isolated in that home for any reason, that's going to add even bigger stressor. In fact, isolation increases your risk of dying from any cause up to 30%. That's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's crazy. Moreover, if your home is hard to get around and or in a place that's not walkable and you find yourself becoming increasingly less active, that's going to age you faster. Muscle loss is the canary in the coal mine. Inactivity is the carbon monoxide that's poisoning that canary. So while staying put may feel comfortable and safe, it will actually erode the very systems that you rely on to remain independent, which means your environment is either medicine or micropoison. There's not much neutral ground there. We tend to think of comfort as the goal, but biologically, comfort is meant to be temporary. Your body is designed to engage, recover, and then re-engage. Comfort is the pause, not the plan. But when comfort becomes constant, your stress response downshifts far too much. Your muscles stop being challenged. Your mitochondria stop upregulating energy production. Your brain stops wiring new connections. That's what scientists call underload. There's just not enough stress to keep the system responsive. And underload is every bit as dangerous as overload. So the key is finding a middle ground, a middle load, what physiologists call the adaptive range. That's where all growth happens. I like to call it your Goldilocks zone, the just right level of stress and challenge that's going to keep you strong, sharp, and adaptable. If your days become too predictable, your biology assumes that the world has stopped changing, so it just stops adapting. That's when comfort turns into a cage. Just to get more specific about what's going on in your body, your brain stress circuits, what we call the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA axis for short, they go into a kind of idle mode. The stress hormone cortisol stays too low. Sounds good to have low stress hormone, but what we actually need are short bursts of cortisol. It's what wakes us up in the morning, helps us focus, mobilizes our energy, and primes our brain for learning. Without those microspikes, our systems get lazy. Blood sugar control worsens. Mitochondrial efficiency declines. Immune surveillance weakens. You start to see fatigue, stiffness, brain fog, all the symptoms of understimulation. And what's worse, once you're in that low stimulation state, you crave even more comfort because discomfort now feels threatening. The less you do, the smaller your tolerance becomes. That's the comfort loop. Comfort breeds fragility, which breeds more comfort seeking. You can think of your stress response like a muscle. Use it or lose it. Use it wisely, and it keeps you resilient. Stop using it, and it atrophies. Why? Because every adaptive system in your body responds to mild, controlled stress. For example, when you lift weights, you create micro tears in those muscle fibers. The body then repairs those fibers and they become stronger than they were before you exercised. Likewise, when you expose yourself to brief cold or heat stress, your mitochondria produce more protective proteins, which makes your immune system more robust. Or when you solve new challenging cognitive problems, your brain increases neurotrophic factors, which literally fertilize neural growth. These are all examples of what we call hormesis, where small positive doses of stress make you stronger. Now, translate that to your environment. If your home no longer challenges you physically, cognitively, and socially, you'll lose one of your most reliable micro stressors, your body and brain slip below the adaptive threshold. On the other hand, when you change environments, it triggers adaptation. Moving creates new movement patterns, new social interactions, and new problem-solving demands. The trick, of course, is finding that Goldilocks zone. Too much stress and you burn out. Too little, you rust out. The art of longevity is finding that just right space where you can stretch without snapping. And when you break out of that cage of comfort, it makes you less fragile. But I think of breaking free as requiring a bit of rebelliousness. I don't mean a chaotic reactive rebellion. I mean a calibrated proactive one, where you seek just enough challenge to stimulate adaptation, but not so much as to cause exhaustion. I've had clients successfully apply this principle to their next act journey. When someone tells me I feel 10 years younger after rightsizing, what they're really saying is I found my Goldilocks zone again. Because that's what change does when it's intentional. It gives your nervous system that spark to thrive. If you've ever made a major move, you know just how much work it is. Finding a new home, packing and unpacking, engaging with new social circles, it's challenging at best, overwhelming at worst. When you do it, though, in a kind of calibrated and controlled manner, these kinds of moves in retirement can be invigorating. You wake up dormant systems. You aren't rebelling against comfort altogether, you're stretching yourself strategically. But let's be honest, sometimes it's not just comfort that keeps us stuck, it's grief. We grieve the loss of our past life and the roles we've outgrown. We grieve letting go of the illusion that things could stay the same forever. It's hard admitting that kids or careers don't need us much anymore. It's hard admitting we aren't tethered to a location. That kind of freedom can feel unsettling. And the only way through this grief is compassion for your past self, while at the same time staying connected to your future self. You don't have to bulldoze your history to build your future. You can thank your home for all that it gave you, the laughter, the safety, the memories, while still recognizing that its purpose might be complete. That's just emotional maturity. It's evolution. And hey, I've watched people cry as they hand over their keys at closing. It is most certainly emotional. But then they'll text me a few weeks later saying, I feel so much lighter. I didn't know how much that house was weighing on me. So here's my challenge to you this week. Ask yourself, where have I chosen comfort over growth? Which spaces in my home and my life have gone quiet? What small act of rebellion could I take this month to wake them up? And importantly, am I willing to do that? If comfort has become your default, that's not failure, it's biology. But biology can be trained. Freeing yourself from that cage of comfort doesn't mean running after stress. It simply means giving yourself permission to move. And movement, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, is what's going to keep you young. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to move and to let go of old identities, the ones that no longer serve you. Your willingness to evolve is the best anti-aging supplement out there. So take one rebellious step this week, one act that tells your brain we're still growing. And hey, maybe that step is to attend our upcoming Right Size Without Regret workshop. We are going to have so much fun in that workshop in a couple of weeks. You can save your seat for that at rightsizretirement.com. It's a completely free online event where I'm going to help you unpack whether your current home is helping or hindering your next act. And we'll look at what levers you can pull to create more cash flow, freedom, and vitality. Join us for that and find your Goldilocks zone of what lifestyle fits you just right. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Next Act Ninjas. Until next time, my friends, live well, love more, age less.